The tour. On September 23, 1974, reporters and members of Congress arrived at Fort Knox by Army bus. At the entrance to Gold Vault Road, a stark sign issued a command. HALT. State your business in loudspeaker. Do not enter without permission. For the first time in history, outsiders were about to step inside the nation's most secure vault. Previously, the only known public figure to enter had been Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1943. Even former presidents had been denied access. But this was not an open house event. It was damage control. A Washington attorney, Dr. Peter Beater, had ignited a firestorm, alleging that the U.S. government had secretly removed billions in gold from Fort Knox. The theory was fueled by the absence of independent audits and a longstanding refusal to allow inspections. Upon mounting public pressure, the Treasury Department relented, organizing a carefully controlled tour of the facility. Inside the fortress, visitors passed through metal detectors, closely watched by armed guards with submachine guns. The vault door, a 22-ton slab of steel, required 2 officials to unlock it, each turning separate secret combinations. With a heavy thunk, the door swung open, revealing a staggering sight. 36,236 gold bars stacked floor to ceiling in a vault measuring 8 feet high, 6 feet wide, and 12 feet deep. In total, they represented roughly 14.5 million troy ounces, worth billions of dollars in 1974. However, it was only a fraction of what the facility claimed to hold. Many of the bars bore the same purity markings as gold coins, confiscated during the government's 1930s recall. Ordinary Americans had been forced to surrender their gold, which was now reforged and locked away behind impenetrable doors. Treasury officials, hoping to silence doubts, declared victory. "There it is," announced Mary Brooks, director of the U.S. Mint. The message was clear. The gold is here, and the rumors are false. But not everyone was convinced. Representative John Roosevelt of California, a skeptic, raised a persistent rumor. What about the escape tunnel? Allegations had long circulated that a secret passage had been used to smuggle gold out of the vault. Officials hesitated before acknowledging its existence. They insisted the tunnel was a safety feature, not an escape route. Under pressure, they agreed to open it. When the seal was broken, visitors found only a narrow crawl space, leading to another section of the depository, not an exit. There was no sign of smuggled gold. The tour ended with a demonstration. A single gold bar was randomly selected, weighed, and confirmed as genuine. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Treasury officials hoped the spectacle would end the controversy. Yet doubts lingered. The visit had been carefully staged, allowing access only to a fraction of the facility's contents. Some speculated that gold had been positioned specifically for the tour. As the massive doors swung shut once more, the question remained unanswered. Had America really seen all there was to see? You want to know one fact about the usually mysterious Dark Five? I'm a big cyclist, and I always listen to music when I ride. That's why I partnered with Raycon to sponsor this video. Last year, I dropped my really expensive earbuds 4 times while riding. I know the exact number, it freaked me out every time. So when I tried the Raycon's everyday earbuds, black, of course, I was hooked. They sound great, stay in place, and the best part is that you won't need to break into Fort Knox to afford a pair. Especially when you use the link buyraycon.com/dark5 for 20% off. These everyday earbuds live up to their name. They have noise isolation to block distractions when I work, but also awareness mode, so I can hear traffic when I'm riding. They're sweat resistant, and with 32-hour battery life, I can go for 2 weeks of daily rides without charging. And if I ever forget, just 10 minutes plugged in gives me 90 minutes of battery. Get premium sound at half the price of other top brands. Go to buyraycon.com/dark5 for 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. Click the link in the description to support the channel and grab the deal. Brought to you by Raycon. The Mantell Incident. The tower at Godman Field spotted it first. Suspended high over Fort Knox, the object hovered, massive and unmoving. Witnesses grasped for comparisons: an ice cream cone, a parachute, a teardrop, round at one end, tapering to a point. It was January 7th, 1948, and reports of the strange craft had been rolling in for hours from across the state. By the time the call went out to Captain Thomas Mantell, the slow-moving object was directly over Fort Knox, and the Air Force wanted answers. Mantell, a decorated World War II pilot, was leading a formation of 4 P-51 Mustangs from Marietta, Georgia, to Standiford Field in Louisville. At 2:45 p.m., he and 2 wingmen broke formation, banking toward the unknown object. What happened next would become one of the most infamous UFO incidents in American history. At 15,000 feet, Mantell made first visual contact and radioed to the tower, quote, "The object is directly ahead of me and above me now, moving at about half my speed." By 22,000 feet, his 2 wingmen had turned back. Neither had oxygen equipment. Mantell, however, pressed on. At 3:15 p.m., he radioed a chilling update, quote, "It appears metallic and of tremendous size. I'm still climbing." By 3:30 p.m., he vanished from radio contact. His last clear transmission was a proposal to climb to 25,000 feet before turning back. A few garbled messages followed. Then, silence. Civilians near Franklin, Kentucky spotted the fighter plane spiraling downward sometime around 4:45 p.m. It hit the ground in a violent nosedive, shedding debris across a mile-wide stretch of farmland. When authorities arrived, Mantell's seatbelt was shredded. His body had been ejected from the wreckage, and most oddly, his watch had stopped at 3:18 p.m., near the start of his encounter. News headlines exploded with speculation. Some claimed his plane disintegrated mid-air. Others reported his body was riddled with bullets, and even that an energy weapon from an alien craft had shot him down. The U.S. Air Force scrambled for an explanation. At first, they suggested Mantell had mistaken Venus for a UFO, but astronomers dismissed the idea. The planet wasn't visible in daylight. Years later, Project Blue Book proposed a new theory. Mantell had been chasing a Skyhook balloon, a top-secret Navy surveillance project. These 600-foot-tall balloons hovered at 60,000 feet, reflecting sunlight like a metallic craft. There was only one problem. No records confirm a Skyhook balloon over Kentucky that day. Whether Mantell chased a classified military balloon or something truly unknown, his final moments remain a mystery. Experts say hypoxia may have led him to climb too high, blacking out before his plane plummeted to Earth. But what he saw before losing consciousness, what compelled him to keep climbing, died with him. Some reports claim Mantell's final words included a cryptic detail, that he saw beings inside the craft. No official record confirms this. A plaque in Franklin, Kentucky marks the site of Mantell's crash. It simply reads, quote, "He gave his life in defense of his country." What he was defending it from, however, remains a question unanswered. And it's gone. A single meme was all it took for Elon Musk to revive a decades-old conspiracy. Is the gold supposedly stored in Fort Knox really there? The military installation, established in 1937, was designed to safeguard America's gold reserves following the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. By 1941, Fort Knox held 649 million ounces, more than anywhere else in the world. Adjusted for inflation, that would be worth over $1.9 trillion today, more than the total gold reserves of any nation. Today, officials claim the vaults still contain 147 million ounces, worth over $400 billion. However, the lack of a full independent audit has fueled speculation that some or all of the gold might be missing. The last official audit was conducted in 1953, and while a small group of journalists and congressmen were allowed inside in 1974, no full inventory has ever been made public. One of the more dramatic theories suggests that much of the gold was secretly removed and replaced with tungsten bars, nearly identical in density, but vastly cheaper. The idea took root in 2009, when an unverified report claimed that gold bars shipped from the US to China had been drilled into, revealing tungsten cores. While no official evidence ever surfaced, real cases of counterfeit gold in global markets added fuel to the fire. In 2010, reports emerged of tungsten-filled gold bars circulating in Manhattan's Diamond District. And in 2020, a Chinese jewelry firm was caught using gilded copper to secure billions in fraudulent loans. Each incident reinforced the idea that fake gold could be hidden in vaults around the world, perhaps even at Fort Knox. A less sensational factor behind Fort Knox's dwindling reserves lies in the economic pressures of the 20th century. Under the Bretton Woods system between 1944 and 1971, the US dollar was backed by gold, allowing foreign governments to exchange their dollars for physical bullion. As American spending surged, particularly due to the Vietnam War, gold quietly flowed out of the vaults, piece by piece, to satisfy mounting international demands. Between 1958 and 1971, more than half of America's gold reserves vanished, dropping from 543 million ounces to just 261 million ounces as foreign governments redeemed their dollars for gold. By the time President Richard Nixon abruptly ended the dollar's convertibility in 1971, Fort Knox had already been hemorrhaging gold for years. The government never fully disclosed the specifics of these withdrawals, leaving an unanswered question: just how much remained behind those sealed doors? Now, Musk's viral post has reignited debate over Fort Knox, this time with backing from President Donald Trump. A longtime advocate for a full audit, Trump has echoed calls to finally open the vaults, raising the possibility that for the first time in half a century, the public may soon get a definitive answer. More than gold. December 1941. America reels from the attack on Pearl Harbor. Fearing an invasion, officials in Washington make a swift, secretive decision. The nation's most sacred documents must be moved to safety. Under cover of night, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights are sealed in protective cases, loaded into a reinforced steel railway car, and sent under heavy Secret Service guard to Kentucky. Traveling with them are the Gettysburg Address, a Gutenberg Bible, and a rare copy of the Magna Carta. Their destination, Fort Knox, one of the most fortified places in the country, guarded by 30,000 troops and anti-aircraft guns. For nearly 3 years, these irreplaceable artifacts remained locked inside the depository, hidden behind walls designed to withstand artillery fire. Only in late 1944, with the tide of war shifting, are they quietly returned to Washington. This was just the beginning. Over the decades, Fort Knox would house some of history's most unusual and secretive treasures. One of its most curious residents arrived in 1945, the crown jewels of Hungary. As Soviet forces closed in on Budapest, the Royal Hungarian Crown Guard made a desperate decision. They would rather entrust their most revered artifact, the Holy Crown of St. Stephen, to the US than let it fall into communist hands. The crown, adorned with pearls and gold, had been a symbol of Hungary's sovereignty for nearly 1,000 years, so much so that medieval law dictated that a king could not rule without wearing it. Hungarian officers buried the crown in a wooden box in an Austrian forest before eventually surrendering it to US forces. The crown, along with its scepter, orb, and mantle, was quietly transferred to Fort Knox, where it remained under heavy security for over 3 decades. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter returned the relics to Hungary in a gesture of Cold War diplomacy. But Fort Knox's role as a vault for more than just gold didn't end there. In 1955, amid Cold War anxieties, the US government began stockpiling thousands of pounds of opium and morphine inside the depository, preparing for a scenario in which pharmaceutical supply chains were severed. At the time, the US relied almost entirely on Turkey and India for medical opium, both of which were vulnerable to Soviet influence. A blockade or global conflict could have cut off the supply, leaving hospitals without essential painkillers. By the late 20th century, the stockpile had reached nearly 70,000 pounds, enough to supply the entire US medical system with 700 million doses of morphine for a year. In 1993, the government converted the reserves into morphine sulfate, extending its shelf life, but by then, Fort Knox's role in medical stockpiling had largely faded. Yet rumors persist that far stranger items have been stored behind its vaults. Some believe wreckage from the infamous 1947 Roswell incident lies inside. Others claim it houses secret government research projects, alien remains, or documents too dangerous to ever be revealed. Fact or fiction, one thing is certain: Fort Knox is more than just a fortress for gold. Secret defenses. The first thing you see when you approach Fort Knox isn't the gold. No one sees the gold. Instead, you see fences, razor wire, watchtowers, the looming mass of the U.S. Bullion Depository, its granite and concrete bulk as forbidding as any medieval citadel. The vault is sealed by a 20-ton door. No single person knows the full combination. Beyond that, the details blur into secrecy and speculation. Fort Knox was built in 1936, its design meant to withstand war, theft, and even time itself. Officially, the gold reserves are protected by the United States Mint Police, one of the oldest federal law enforcement agencies, with jurisdiction rivaling that of the Secret Service. Armed guards patrol the perimeter, sentry boxes at every corner. And yet, Fort Knox is more than just a vault. It's a fortress within a fortress. The Bullion Depository sits inside a 100,000-acre military base, home to 30,000 soldiers, armored vehicles, and heavy artillery. If you could reach the outer walls, you'd have an entire army waiting for you. Unofficially, the rumored defenses border on science fiction. Some claim the grounds are riddled with landmines, hidden beneath the manicured grass. Others say electric fences and body capacitance sensors form a near-invisible web of deterrence. Ground radar, they claim, sweeps the area with the precision of predator drones, able to detect the difference between a drifting bird and a human footstep. The security measures inside are even more elaborate. Vault codes, randomized and compartmentalized, are known only to a select few. Even if an infiltrator could bypass the physical defenses, they'd need an inside man, someone with the right credentials at precisely the right time. Some rumors go further. Laser-triggered machine guns, biometric kill switches, vaults that flood themselves if breached. Despite its formidable defenses, Fort Knox has never faced a known theft attempt. The closest anyone has come, at least in the popular imagination, was Auric Goldfinger, the fictional Bond villain whose elaborate plan to irradiate the gold reserves in Goldfinger remains the most famous attempted heist, albeit a purely fictional one. But perhaps Fort Knox's greatest defense isn't the landmines, the fences, or the soldiers. It's the myth. After all, who would even try? What do you think Elon Musk will find in Fort Knox? Could some of the gold be missing? As always, thank you for watching Dark 5. Like and subscribe to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of this world and beyond.